Hey guys, on this week's debate show over on Redmen Plus, we discussed whether Liverpool should be in the market for West Ham midfielder Declan Rice this summer. Check this out. On the Here We Go podcast, which is by Fabrizio Romano said that Declan Rice could be available for this summer for a price of somewhere in the region of 80 to 90 million pounds. It's actually 90 to 95 million pounds rather. Chelsea, Man City and Man United are all apparently interested in him, according to Fabrizio Romano. My question to you is, should Liverpool be making a move for Declan Rice? Should Liverpool be in that conversation as well? Before we go into the numbers and everything about it, just what are your general thoughts on it as soon as I said that to you?
Yeah, I think we should definitely be in the conversation for him. He's an absolute talent, and he's shown that over the last 2 or 3 years now, where he's really upped his game. He's the driving force of the West Ham team, or one of the driving force of the West Ham team, and the reason why they've been doing so well. You have to have a look at him. I think the money is inflated based on his passport, because that's what happens when you buy a British player. The prices increase. So obviously I don't want to, say he's a £90 million player, because he's probably not. But again, it's just because of the price of the British passport thing. But that's what you do. You pay for local, don't you? But we definitely need to be in the conversation, mate. I think he's an absolute talent, and he's one for the future. Now, I like having English players in our side because he's just got that core. Albeit, he's not a scouser. But I think the way we look at our midfield now, we need to be bringing in those experienced type of players, and he's also quite unique in his position as opposed to like Fabinho and Thiago of what he does on the football pitch. So for me, absolutely, let's be in the conversation.
Roy, I'll pass it to you. Jay mentions the English passport thing there, and we all know there's a premium on it, but there's a premium on it for a reason.
Yeah.
But there aren't that many of them. When they are somewhere, it's hard to get them out of there. And secondly, Liverpool actually, we were borderline on the old English quota this year, and there's a chance in the summer. We think Milner's going to stay around. That's going to be topic 2, but we'll see where that's going. There's no guarantees Milner's still here. Nat Phillips has just left. Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, there's doubts perhaps what his long-term future is. Joe Gomez is another one now, who I think there's a question mark over, given the fact that he isn't even making match-day squad. So the whole homegrown thing is becoming an issue. And that's probably another reason why all these teams are interested in him for sure. But that is something we have to consider going forward, whether it's a Bryce, whether it's a Bellingham or whatever it is. I think Liverpool probably needs to go out, and whoever they sign in the summer, they're probably going to have to get an English player in, you would think.
Yeah, no, definitely. To be honest, it's funny you mentioned Bellingham, because I think they're the two obviously sought after midfielders, especially from an English point of view. And to be honest, I'm leaning more in the sense towards Bellingham. Like, don't get me wrong, I understand Rice is a good player, but there's things that I see about Rice that I don't like. There's things that I see on the pitch when he plays that I don't think's a Liverpool player. I don't think he'd suit our formation, because I don't think he's going to be up and down, left centre mid, right centre mid, and creating like we want to see a Thiago and a Keita do. He can do what Henderson does, and if you look at the fallout lately on social media over Henderson, which I think's very unjust, he may offer a younger legs, but I don't think he offers any more in creativity, and he's not going to replace Fabinho as obviously a number 6. And so for me, see, I didn't get the hype over the Declan Rice and Phillips midfield for England. I just didn't get it. It might be more because I was upset that obviously Henderson wasn't involved more. But even when we played them, I know obviously they just sat back and defended well and done well, but I don't see it with Declan Rice. I'll be honest. I think he's a good, solid player. I just don't think he's a Liverpool player. And when I think about English players that we could potentially sign in the summer, if we're going to spend your 80, 90 millions, I'm leaning very much more to Jude Bellingham.
That's the thing, isn't it, Jay? Because I'll say, and Steve Plunk in the Discord chat there says, Declan Rice is going to be a bidding war with United and Chelsea and probably City as well for that. Are there any other better options at better prices out there? It depends what you think. We don't know for a fact what. Like, Jude Bellingham is the other answer in this conversation. You would think there's actually Phillips, who Rory mentioned. There's an English midfielder who perhaps could be a target. But if they are going to go for an English player,
he suits us better.
He probably does in certain ways.
Yeah, Phillips suits us better. And yeah.
On the Rice thing, I suppose the difference is he then becomes your backup number 6 to Fabinho and potentially an upgrade on Henderson. That's the thing, isn't it? It's that. But the likelihood is you usually, and this isn't always the case, and listen, Borussia Dortmund got extortionate money out of Manchester United for Jadon Sancho. But it might be, as Steve Plunk says in the chat there, it might be £30 million cheaper to go and buy Jude Bellingham than Declan Rice, in which case it's pretty much a no-brainer, isn't it, really?
It is. If the debate is, obviously the topic was, would Declan Rice be an option? Should we be in the conversation? Yes. However, if, like Roy brought up fantastically, Bellingham is the option, and I would prefer Bellingham in that squad 100%, because I think the way the midfield future looks, if Bellingham's in there, it absolutely fits, and it's exactly what Roy said. So if I'm going to be spending the money, it's highly unlikely that we're going to spend the 80 million on Bellingham and then another 80 to 90 on Declan Rice. It's not going to happen. So if you're going to give me that pot of money, I'm going to put it on Bellingham rather than Rice. But for the sake of the debate, should we be in the conversation? Yes, but I couldn't see it happening.
Roy, you mentioned earlier, you said there, mate, there's certain things about Declan Rice's game that you don't particularly like. Can you expand on that? What is it? 'Cause I'll be honest, I'm different than you. I'm a huge fan. Yeah. I think he's brilliant. What is that you're not particularly fond of?
Do you know what, mate? It goes from a game-to-game basis with him. When I watch him, I see things from him and think, yeah, do you know what? He's a solid midfielder. If he's in your midfield, to be honest, when we touch on my subject later, I think he'd suit that particular conversation a bit more in a two in a midfield. I just don't think the high velocity football that we play with that three midfield, with obviously the left centre mid and the right centre mid up down constantly, Fabinho, obviously, covering the centre backs. I just don't think he would suit Klopp's style of football. That's just my personal preference. So I'm thinking of it. If I don't think it from a Liverpool point of view, I think, you know what? Yeah, it'd be great for England for the next, 10 years. It'd be brilliant in a Chelsea team, for instance. He's a Chelsea fan. If he's going to move, I think they may be his favourite team, to be honest. Unless he's got any type of vendetta for them letting him go, I don't know. But I just think for the way we play football, that's what I mean. I just don't think he suits the Klopp system as much as, as I say, Bellingham would. And I think with Bellingham, if he's going to cost you 80, 90, 100 million, I just think there's just a dead set midfielder there, potential captain in 10, 12 years' time. Do you know what I mean?
I'm 5 years younger, so you're paying the same money and you might get whatever years
exactly. How often, sorry to cut you off this day, just before I forget this question, how often does it work where a London-based lad moves to a club up north and it works? I know I'm shooting out of thin air, because straight away I'm thinking Joe Cole coming to Liverpool and it never worked out, and he openly admitted on several podcasts he couldn't settle in the area. He's a London boy through and through. Declan Rice is a London boy through and through as well, and I think that might be a bit of a factor as well.
I watched them. I don't know if you watched them on the Overlap recently with Guy Neville. It was fascinating. It's a good show. If you haven't watched it, it's on YouTube. Maybe check it out. But he admits he is so intertwined with his family. He still sees his mum and dad pretty much every day. I think his dad and his brother represent him. Yeah. I think if you said to Declan Rice you could go anywhere in the world right now, he would pick Chelsea. I think they let him go as a kid. Mason Mount his best mate. I think they had but the flip side is Liverpool could be Premier League, European Cup winners, holders by the time this conversation comes. We could have the League Cup, we could beat Chelsea in the League Cup final in a week or so's time. There's things I think if all these teams won them, but if there's a bidding war and say for example everyone had that number accepted, I think he would choose Chelsea.
Yeah, he would.
But we don't know where Chelsea are going to be, and what they're going to be like. I imagine Thomas Tuchel will be the manager, but you never know with Chelsea, the uncertainty around that football club. The one thing I'm going to bring some stats up on the screen now from our good friends at Total Football Analysis, and you see that I'm circling Declan Rice for those of you who are listening. And basically this is a looking at accurate forward passes and Declan Rice, the only two Liverpool players who've played more accurate forward passes than Declan Rice this season. Well, we got three. There's the two centre halves, which you'd expect because they're knocking the ball into midfield, and Trent for obvious reasons. But look at the top, by the way, City's players are the top three, and Cancelo, Laporte, and Diaz again because the defenders passing it forward. But in terms of midfielders on this list, he's up there with all of them really. This pass, accurate forward passes usually favours centre backs because they're passing the ball into midfield. Declan Rice is getting the ball in midfield and he is getting it forward. That's what he's good at. I take Rui's point. He does it in a 2, so he's always got Souček next to him and a number 10 to get the ball to. But I think that is something Liverpool at times don't do well enough, is get the ball forward or from midfield into attack. Thiago's brilliant at it, really good at it. And Keita at times is really good at it as well. But in general, I think that's something we can do a little bit better. And that's where I think Rice could be. Again, if it was me and it was in the 3, I could see a midfielder, Fabinho with Thiago definitely. And then Rice on the right, maybe an upgrade on Henderson, I would say he is. Obviously, Harvey Elliott's batting around, and then there's tons of options, but that's one of the things when I watch Declan Rice, I'm always impressed with. He's willing to drive with the ball, and he's a big, strong, powerful lad, but he's quick to get those passes forwards as well, which would suit us.
It would indeed. I mean, I look at the Thiago situation, and Thiago, like you said, does that very, very well. And for me, if that's what you want out of Declan Rice, then we've already got that with Thiago. But obviously, the cloud above Thiago at the minute is the fact that it's his fitness, which is an absolute shame. So for me, if you're just looking at getting the ball forward and making those forward passes, that's what Thiago was brought in to do. So I don't see the reason about bringing Declan Rice to do that. However, the drive is what we do miss sometimes. Is that driving force. And Henderson has been absolutely fantastic for Liverpool for 10 years, and he was a driving force for a long time, and he still is in his odd game. I don't agree with the negativity that's surrounding Henderson at the minute. Yes,
he's in bad form,
he's out of form, and every player deserves to be out of form. But then as soon as Hendo comes back into form, you can't drop him for obvious reasons, and people need to remember that. Do you know what I mean? So it's one of them. But however, with Henderson coming probably towards the end of his tenure at Liverpool over the next 3 or 4 years, you've got to start thinking about it. But again, I got to agree. Like, I'd rather spend the money on Bellingham than I would Rice.
I just want to bring up this one, Roy, again, and I know you are home. Basically, this is defensive duels one, and again, we mentioned before about Declan Rice being high on the offensive. He's also very high up on this list in terms of defensive duels one. He's higher than any West Ham player. This often, again, because this often favours poorer teams. If you look, Brentford, Southampton, Palace players all near the top. Of Declan Rice is in there as well. So on these stats lists, then, Roy, he's in both. He's high up. He's quite high on, again, they are selected stats, but he's on all these pages. Declan Rice features, and these stats are half of them are defensive stats and half of them are offensive stats. And he's one of the few names who are on every single list. And that's what I was saying to you. I think at the moment, mate, I don't know if you agree, I think we lack an ideal replacement at 6 for Fabinho. The more I see Henderson do it, the more I think he struggles with it, and I think his game's changed. And he doesn't look. I reference a few. I think it's the Brighton game. I think he struggles in that role a couple of times as well. It feels to me like Liverpool haven't got that, and that is something. Again, Bellingham saying he can do a defensive role, but Declan Rice, he definitely could. Basically, bring him in and he can play all three of those positions, which is, for all Liverpool's options, we haven't actually really got many lads who can do all three of those jobs to a high level.
Yeah, no, to be fair, that's something I've got to touch on myself later. For the drop off after Fabinho is massive when it comes to a number 6. I think for the stats, I'm not saying that these stats are in any way shaped false, but you can get carried away with certain stats sometimes. Like, he could have these most defensive blocks, things like that. Because when we played West Ham, their low block was so low. They sat back, tucked in. Perfect game of football, to be fair. If it was Arsenal played us afterwards and got absolutely spanked, they should have looked at the way West Ham played it set up against us, because they schooled us that day. In all fairness, so obviously, if they're playing just in front of a back four, nice and tight, they're going to have all these nice defensive stats. And the same with the forward passes. If they're picking up the ball on the edge of the box, the only way they can kind of go is forward. But that's just my thought on stats in general. To be honest, I think they can kind of be good, or they can kind of be misstrued. And don't get me wrong, I think Declan Rice can be and will be an exceptional player. He may even become an England captain in the future. There's talk of that. I am not disputing the fact that he's a great player. I just don't think, like you may differ, but I just don't think he suits our system as much as maybe people give him credit for. I'm
going to bring one last stat up, see if I can change your mind.
It's
recoveries in the opponent's half again. So he is the only. He's essentially right there with Romeo. Romeo on 104 for midfielders. Norgard for Brentford is miles ahead. He does that. He does that really well. He's a pressing machine. But then there's Norgard, Rodri, Romeo, Fabinho, and Declan Rice all above 90. Cancelo's in there as well, which is madness to think. By the way, he's there. Yeah. He's City's right back. But that's another thing I think in terms of the pressing game. Again, I take Roy's point. He does it from a two-man midfield, and there's a big difference because he's always got Souček babysitting him almost. And I get that, but that's another thing. He can get on the front foot. I referenced that interview with AJ, and he says, I always feel like I want to be on the front foot. I want to win my first tackle. I want to win my second tackle. I want to win my first header. He's got that mentality about him as well, but he's willing to do the dirty work. I suppose, mate, it all just comes down, I think, to that price tag. I think we all agree Declan Rice is a top player, and most teams in the Premier League would have him in their squad, and I include Man City. I think Man City would quite like to have him as well. They're interested, but it's whether he's worth a £90 million investment. That's the elephant in the room, isn't it?
It is. £90 million investment is a start.
Every game. He has to
Every
play the game.
Do you know what I mean? He's got to play every game, where he's not going to. I don't want him to come into the squad and hinder Harvey Elliott's progress.
Yeah.
Or, touch would be still getting Carvalho's progress. Because I think they're just exceptional talents. And I don't want Thiago being knocked out of the squad either, because I just think he's a better player right now. Do you know what I mean? And I just think what Thiago offers us is just exceptional football. I mean, every time he gets on the ball, he does drive forward because he is playing those positive balls forward. Do you notice who towards the bottom of that list though? And I say bottom of the list because it's the top players. Jordan Henderson.
Yeah, I mean,
do you know what I mean?
Yeah, he's there. He's on 73. He features a lot on these lists.
That's
in
what
and
I mean.
In and around the Declan Rice zone. Sometimes a little bit above him, sometimes below. It feels to me like Declan Rice, Roy, is the perfect Jordan Henderson replacement. But the issue we've got is Jordan Henderson's not ready to go anywhere yet, and that Declan Rice isn't ready. Declan Rice isn't going to move from West Ham, where he plays every week, pretty much captains the side a lot because Mark Noble's never on the pitch anymore. Wherever Declan Rice goes, he wants to go and get a game and be guaranteed the game. And it feels like at the moment, I personally think will get in a Liverpool side. And I think there's debate, to be honest, whether City, probably, I don't know, Chelsea, probably. There's a reason like they're going big for him. But it does feel like that's the thing, isn't it? It's all well and good saying I want to sign the next guy. But it might be that you've got to go and buy a Carvalho because because these lads aren't ready to go anywhere yet. Jordan Henderson's not. He's only just signed a new contract. He's here for a while. It would be difficult, I think, to say to Declan Rice, come in and just bed yourself in. Wherever he goes, he wants to go and start. And if you pay 90 million quid for him, he probably has to as well.
Yeah, in all fairness, in a positive note on Rice, he's probably better than, like, in the sense of his progression than Bellingham. Bellingham's not Premier. He's never played in the Premier League. If he was to come into a Liverpool team, bedding in him, giving him game time every other game, bringing him as a sub, bringing him off as sub, you can work with that. But as you say, Rice is going to want to come in and play 90 minutes every single week. He's not going to be able to do that with Fabinho in a six. And for as much as Henderson's out of form, he is our captain. He will find that form again. He's not going to totally replace Henderson, as you say. We couldn't afford to have that amount of those amounts of midfielders on all those wages. See, I look at it from a financial point of view as well. If you're going to spend 100 million on a midfielder and he wants to start every single game, fair enough. But if he's not going to start, it's the same with the Rafinha debate. Everyone goes on about 60, 70 million for Rafinha. Well, he's not going to get a game if Mo Salah's still at the club. So you've got to be shrewd in the market. And I just feel, in all credit, Declan Rice is probably, at 23 years old, he's probably too good for what we need in the sense of a player to come in and work with what we got, because he's not going to start. He's not going to play 90 minutes every week.
I'll end then on a few, before we get our final answers, what the answers are, I'll go to a few of the club legends then. So, like you say, we've got Scott, who says, in theory, it's a great idea, but for a player who will demand a high wage and a high transfer fee, it might be overkill, as he'll be a rotational player with Fabinho. I'd actually prefer Calvin Phillips, is what he says. We've got Christopher. Let's go with Christopher. He says, it sounds like a posh, like a Tory
like
saying
that.
Christopher. Yeah, I wouldn't say no to Rice, but he would be very expensive. Likewise, I wouldn't say no to Calvin Phillips, and he would be a better replacement in our system and probably cheaper too. A couple more then. Naif, who goes on to say Rice would be a decent cover for Fabinho. And then Jith, I think Rice is an excellent player, but I don't think he'd play enough to warrant the insane amount of money that he'll cost. And then Rushi goes on, I think it's either Rice or Bellingham, and to be honest, they're both as good at each other. Either way, you're getting one of the best talents in world football, and that's kind of, isn't it, Roy? I think we're all in the same boat there. Like, it's the dough. I don't think anyone doubts the player, but are you getting banged for your buck? So if I go back to the very, very start, I want to ask you this way. Should Liverpool make a summer move for Declan Rice, Jay?
No.
Right?
No, but if money was no object and we could sign who we wanted, yes. There you go.
Yeah, see, it's right though, isn't it?
See, can I throw this out there?
If our owners would say, like, you've got X amount of money and stuff like that, and I'm not starting a bloody owner debate, that is not what I'm saying. It's a case of, we know damn well how our transfer policy works. Yeah. If we know we've got loads of money, we get them both, sound, let's get them both in, make the squad even better. But it's one or the other for me on that price tag, and it's going to be Bellingham.
I think if they were both the same price, I think I'd take Declan Rice, which that's a great rhyme, by the way. I'm a poet, I didn't even know it. I think I think Liverpool should make a summer move for Declan Rice, but I don't think West Ham are going to get 90 million quid for him. I think they might get a bit less. There you have it then. That's what we thought about Liverpool potentially signing Declan Rice in the summer. If you want to watch the whole debate show to cover whether Liverpool should be offering James Milner a contract and if Jurgen Klopp should be thinking about utilising a 4-2-3-1 formation, just head on over to the redmentv.com and sign up to Redmen Plus. You will not regret it. Hey guys, thanks for watching that show. We are on the countdown to the League Cup final. Liverpool playing Chelsea at the end of February. And if you want to get some amazing content around that game, we have got you covered.
We have got exclusive interviews and documentaries all available in video and podcast form. So you want to listen to us on the go, we have got you sorted.
Yeah, so do head on over to the redmentv.com, join up to Redmen Plus, and hopefully get yourselves in the mood for when Liverpool win the League Cup at Wembley.